It's more valuable than gold, but it comes at a price. Rhino horn trafficking has left the government and private game reserve owners pointing fingers as to who should take responsibility and foot the bill for protecting one of the country's most priceless natural resources. SEARL DERMAN of AQUILA Game Reserve just outside of Cape Town recently lost 2 rhinos to organized syndicates.
What happened was they gained entry to our land. We believe there was a big team of professional poachers, either with a military or veterinary or game capture background, and they operated at night with very specialized equipment, probably very heavily armed. They darted 3 of our rhino, of which 2 of them were killed and died, and then 1 of our rhino managed to survive. The 1 rhino was left with 1 of his horns sawn off and the other horn still intact. They managed to saw halfway through, but they didn't get it. And the other rhino was lying there, darted, but still alive, and they didn't get a chance to get to the horn.
Policing rhino poaching is not cheap. South African National Parks has spent 450 million rand this year alone on anti-poaching efforts. But private game owners complain that rather than solving the issue of poaching, it has merely shifted the problem to softer targets.
The state focuses on protected areas, which include its national parks and the provincial parks. And various mechanisms that have been used thus far have included a deployment of the army, for example, into the Kruger National Park, various special units with the South African Police Service as well, 20 dedicated prosecutors for the National Prosecuting Authority, all of which cost money, which presumably 2 or 3 years ago wasn't budgeted for, but all of it is completely necessary. There is a cost to rhino poaching in South Africa, and the state, certainly for those rhinos under its control, has to respond to the challenge.
The crime moved from the northern provinces to, since the army got involved, to the less protected, easier targets of the Eastern Cape and Western Cape. Where we haven't had such a, we haven't been intensively hit for the last few years, where we softer targets, and of course where the South African Defence Force isn't actually protecting us. So that leaves the question is, why aren't they protecting us? If they've got the resources, if they've got the money, if they've got the equipment.
Some feel that while government has taken responsibility for state land, private game owners should bear their own costs.
When an animal is private property and on private land, then clearly its day-to-day policing and security becomes the responsibility of the owner. But within a backdrop, within a sea of support from government to ensure that poaching syndicates are not running wild, that trade in rhino horn is not happening illegally and undermining the efforts of the private sector.
I don't think the government should pick up the entire tab. I think rhinos in private hands have various ways to generate income through tourism and through legal hunting. But there are various systems that can be put in place which are more streamlined. So the permitting systems for legal hunts, very active and dedicated policing from the South African Police Service.
We had a big infrastructure for anti-poaching. We've doubled it, so we're spending over 100,000 South African rand a month. And it's a strain on any business, given that there's an international finance situation, and it's affecting everyone. Let alone South Africa, that's a long-haul destination and expensive to travel, expensive to fly into and stuff like that.
South Africa is renowned for its wildlife, a big-ticket item for South African tourism, which contributes around 7.7% to South Africa's GDP. Some suggest that South African tour operators should also play a role by taking some of the responsibility when it comes to preserving our wildlife.
Safaris are our business. We bring tourists from America, from the UK, from the rest of Europe, Australia to come and see the Big Five. The rhino is a part of the Big Five. We can't start advertising the Big Four. The tourism industry benefits hugely from the spectacular landscapes and the wildlife that is in Africa. And it's time for us to give back. We shouldn't be in this for short-term gain, but but we need to make sure that we've got a sustainable tourism industry for years to come and for generations to come.
Whether it's legalization, criminalization, or targeting the source of rhino horn poaching, a solution is still not clear-cut. But there is a resounding agreement that while private game reserve owners are partly responsible, government needs to take the lead in combating rhino horn trafficking.